The morning of April 30th was unusually sunny for Pasadena. Lieutenant Michael Sorensen was just finishing his second cup of coffee when the phone on his desk rang. Reluctantly, he pulled himself away from the report he'd been working on since morning. "Sorensen," he said curtly into the receiver. "Lieutenant, we've got a homicide in Orange Grove, 1435 North Orange Grove Boulevard," the officer on duty reported. "The wife returned home and found her husband dead in bed." Sorensen sighed. Orange Grove was one of Pasadena's most upscale neighborhoods. Murder here meant trouble and intense media attention. He quickly finished his coffee and headed for the exit. As he pulled up to the Clark house, Sorensen couldn't help but notice its well-maintained appearance. It was a two-story colonial-style mansion with a perfectly mowed lawn and a flower-strewn lawn. 2 patrol cars and a forensics van were already in the driveway. The inside of the house matched its exterior: expensive furniture, paintings in massive frames, antique vases. There was luxury in every detail. Sorensen went up to the second floor, where muffled voices could be heard. The master bedroom was an unpleasant contrast to the rest of the house. The sheets on the huge bed were soaked with blood. A man about 48 years old lay on his back, his torso drenched in blood. There was a deep gash on his neck, 2 more precise blows to the heart, and one just below the ribs, probably to the liver. Sorensen noted the precision and methodicality of the blows. Whoever had done this knew where to hit. "What do we got?" Sorensen asked the medical examiner crouched next to the body. 4 stab wounds: carotid, heart, liver, and 1 in the abdomen. Each one could have been fatal on its own. The murder weapon was some kind of kitchen knife, very sharp. Death occurred sometime between 1 o'clock and 3 a.m. Signs of a struggle? No defensive wounds on his hands. He was probably asleep at the time of the attack or unconscious. Let's get blood samples to toxicology to check it out. Sorensen nodded and left the bedroom. In the living room on the first floor, he noticed a woman sitting on the couch. She was dressed in a severe black dress, as if she was already preparing for a funeral. Her face was dead pale, but she was surprisingly collected for someone who had just found her husband murdered. "Mrs. Clark? I'm Detective Michael Sorensen, homicide. I'm sorry for your loss. I realize this is a difficult time for you, but I need to ask you a few questions." Veronica Clark looked up at him. They were dry but reddened, as if she'd already cried all her tears. "I understand, Detective. Go ahead. Tell me what happened this morning." "I got back from my parents around 8 a.m. Gregory and I had an agreement that I'd stay over after dinner because he was going to be working late. When I walked into the bedroom..." Her voice shook, but she pulled herself together. "I saw him. There was blood everywhere. I knew he'd been murdered. I didn't even get close. I just called 911. "What time did you leave for your parents' house last night?" "Around 8 p.m. We had dinner with Gregory, then I packed up and left. He was going to work on some financial reports." "Can anyone confirm that you were at your parents' house all night?" Veronica didn't show a shadow of concern at that question. "Of course. My parents, Warren and Patricia Gibbs, they live in Altadena. It's about 20 minutes from here. I arrived at their house about 8:30 at night and left about 7:45 in the morning." "You didn't leave the house at night?" "No. My mom and I watched a movie, then I went to bed in my old room. In the morning we had breakfast together and I drove home." Sorensen nodded, taking notes. "Who could have wanted your husband dead? Did he have any enemies?" "Gregory was a financier. Of course, there are always people in his business who are unhappy with one decision or another. But enemies capable of murder?" She shook her head. "I can't think of anyone." "What about your marriage? Did you have any problems?" Veronica tensed slightly, but quickly regained her composure. "All couples have problems, Detective, but nothing that would lead to, like this." While Sorensen was talking to Veronica, an officer entered the room. "Lieutenant, we searched the house. No sign of forced entry. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside, except the front door, which was supposedly opened by Mrs. Clark this morning." Sorensen nodded and turned to Veronica again. "Do you have any idea who might have had access to the house during the night?" "Gregory and I are the only ones with keys. Our maids have their own keys, but they only come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yesterday was Monday." "Oh, I see. I'll need to speak to your parents to confirm your alibi." "Of course." Veronica pulled out her cell phone. "Would you like me to call them now? They can come down here." "Yeah, that'd be great. While Veronica called her parents, Sorensen went outside where his partner, Sergeant Tony Nunez, was waiting for him. "What do you think, Tony?" "Neighbors didn't see or hear anything. The houses here are pretty far apart and everyone has their own lot. Some people saw Mrs. Clark leave last night, but no one saw anyone enter or leave the house during the night." "Security cameras?" "They have a security system, but it only records when motion sensors are triggered. There were no alarms this night." "That's odd. Someone had to have gotten into the house to kill Clark." Half an hour later, a car pulled up to the house and an elderly couple got out. The woman looked anxious, the man grim and focused. Sorensen introduced himself and invited them into the patrol car to talk. "Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs, I know this is a difficult moment, but I need to know about last night. Your daughter says she spent the night at your house." "Yes, she did," Warren Gibbs replied confidently. "Veronica arrived about 9:30 in the evening. Patricia and I were just finishing dinner. She said Gregory was working late, so she decided to spend the night," Patricia Gibbs added. "We watched a movie, then went to our bedrooms around 11. "And you're sure your daughter stayed in the house all night?" Patricia frowned. "What do you mean, detective?" "It's a standard question in these investigations," Sorensen explained gently. "I need to know if you saw her this morning, heard her movements in the house during the night. Our bedroom is on the first floor. Veronica's room is on the second floor," Warren explained. "But I definitely saw her this morning at breakfast at about 7 o'clock. She looked rested. We talked about the day's plans. And at night? You didn't hear her leave the house?" "I take sleeping pills," Patricia said. "I sleep very soundly, but our security system is on at night. If someone opened the front door, the alarm would go off." "Does Veronica know the code?" "Of course, it's her home," Warren said, "but the system shows when it's turned on and off. Yesterday, I activated the alarm at 11:15 at night and turned it off at 6:30 this morning when I went downstairs for coffee." Sorensen nodded, taking notes. Veronica's alibi looked solid. If the security system at her parents' house had been activated all night and hadn't detected any movement, then she was indeed staying there. But something about the story still kept him uneasy. Back at the house, Sorensen took another walk through the bedroom where the corpse had been found. In the bathroom, he noticed an empty packet of sleeping pills on the shelf. Half of the pills were missing. He put the package in an evidence bag. In the kitchen unit was a clear decanter with some wine left at the bottom. Sorensen sniffed it. Red wine, quite expensive, judging by the bottle next to it. He ordered the decanter and the remains of the wine to be removed for analysis. "Mrs. Clark, you said you had dinner with your husband last night before you left. What did you eat? Did you drink wine?" "Yes, we had pasta and red wine. Gregory opened the bottle before I got to the kitchen. He liked a good wine." "Was he on any medication?" "I noticed sleeping pills in the bathroom. He sometimes had trouble sleeping, especially during periods of high stress at work. But he didn't take any last night as far as I know. He was going to work." Sorensen nodded, continuing to take notes. A picture was beginning to emerge, but many details were still missing. How could someone break into the house, kill Gregory, and leave without leaving a trace? And why was there no sign of a struggle? By late afternoon, Gregory Clark's body was taken to the morgue and the house was sealed off for further investigation. Veronica went to her parents. She refused to return to the house where her husband was killed. "What do you think?" Nunez asked when he and Sorensen were alone by the car. "Too clean," Sorensen replied thoughtfully. "No sign of forced entry, no witnesses, no obvious motive. 4 precise blows to vital organs speaks of cold-bloodedness and knowledge of anatomy. And yet the victim didn't even try to defend himself." "You think he was sedated?" "Could be. We should wait for toxicology and check out those sleeping pills I found in the bathroom." "And the wife? Her alibi seems solid." "Too solid," Sorensen frowned. "The parents are sure she spent the night at their place. The security system confirms that no one left the house." He was silent for a moment. "I need to talk to the parents again. I want to know more about this security system." On the way to the station, Sorensen pondered the case. His intuition told him the answer was somewhere on the surface, but he couldn't see it yet. One thing was clear. Gregory Clark's murder was either the work of a professional or a carefully planned act of revenge. and he had yet to discover which of the people close to the victim might have had a serious enough motive for such a cold-blooded murder. The next morning, Sorensen called Nunez into his office. "Got the toxicology results," he said, pointing to a folder containing the report. Gregory Clark had sleeping pills in his blood at a dose well above the therapeutic dose. He was virtually unconscious when he was killed. "That explains the lack of a struggle," Nunez nodded. "But it still doesn't explain who did it." "That's what worries me." Sorensen tapped his finger on the report. "The sleeping pills are the same ones I found in their bathroom. Preliminary analysis of the wine from the decanter showed that there were traces of the drug in it too." "You think the wife slipped it into the wine before she left? But how could she come back to kill him? She has an alibi." "I've requested full details on the Gibbs house security system," Sorensen replied. "I want to know if it can be turned off and on again without leaving a trace, or if there are other ways to leave the house undetected." Nunez whistled. "Do you think she did it after all? But why? They had an exemplary marriage, from what acquaintances say." "Model on the outside," Sorensen said thoughtfully. "But I've requested Veronica Clark's medical records. There's information that she's seen a doctor recently. She may have had some health problems that we don't know about." "Do you think that might have something to do with motive?" "I don't know, but I want to check all leads before I jump to conclusions." Sorensen realized that at the moment he only had circumstantial evidence and suspicions, but sometimes it was intuition that led him to the right trail in the most complicated cases. And now it was telling him that Veronica Clark's perfect alibi might be a skillful illusion that hid a shocking truth. The morning of the second day of the investigation began for Michael Sorensen with a call from the lab. The results of the toxicological examination of Gregory Clark's blood confirmed his suspicions. In the victim's body, found a high concentration of zolpidem, a potent sleeping pill. The dose was well above the therapeutic dose, which explained why the victim offered no resistance to the attack. In that state, he wouldn't have woken up even if there was an orchestra playing in the room, the medical examiner commented over the phone. He was practically in a coma when he was killed. Sorensen hung up the phone and thought sleeping pills that explained the lack of a struggle, but raised new questions. Who spiked the drug, and when? An examination of the contents of a decanter of wine found in the Clark's kitchen also revealed the presence of dissolved sleeping pills. Veronica said she and her husband drank the wine at dinner. If the sleeping pills were in the wine, then she must have taken them too. Or did she know the wine was poisoned and just pretended to drink it? The latter seemed more likely. Sorensen summoned Nunez and instructed him to look deeper into the Clark family's financial situation. "Check everything. Joint accounts, insurance, wills. I want to know who's benefiting from Gregory's death." "Do you seriously think the wife could have done this despite her alibi?" Nunez asked. "I have no proof, only suspicion. But if she put sleeping pills in the wine before leaving for her parents' house, she would have time to return at night when the drug was at its peak, kill her husband, and return to her parents' house before dawn." "What about the alarm system at her parents' house?" "I've requested detailed information on the security system at the Gibbs house. See if there's a way to bypass it or temporarily disable it." Sorensen knew it was just a theory, but he felt he was on the right track. He had to dig deeper, look at his motives. Usually in these cases it was money or passion, but something told the detective it might be more complicated than that. After lunch, Sorensen went to Gregory Clark's office in downtown Pasadena. The high-tech building towered over the neighborhood like a glass monument to success and prosperity. He was greeted by Gregory's secretary, Amanda Finch, a woman of about 35 with perfect makeup and a tense look. "Mrs. Finch, I realize this is a difficult time for everyone who knew Mr. Clark," Sorensen began, "but I need to ask a few questions about his work schedule and business contacts." "Of course, detective," she gestured him into the office. "We're all shocked by what happened. Gregory was, a remarkable man." Sorensen noted the subtle pause in her words. "How long did you work with Mr. Clark?" "Almost 8 years. I was his personal assistant the whole time." "So you knew him well. Did he have any enemies, conflicts with coworkers or clients?" Amanda chose her words carefully. "There are often disagreements in business, but Gregory knew how to resolve them. He was a born diplomat." "And in his personal life?" "As his assistant, you must have been aware of his affairs outside of work." A light blush spread across Amanda's cheeks. I only dealt with work matters, Detective. Mrs. Finch, I'm investigating a murder. Any information could be critical. And I'm sure you'd like to help find whoever killed your boss." She was quiet for a moment, then nervously fixed her hair. "There were certain situations. Gregory sometimes asked me to book hotel rooms, order flowers and gifts, not for his wife." "Who was it for?" "Different women. I never asked for names, but I saw some of them. They would sometimes drop by his office." "Did that happen often?" "In the last 2 years, quite regularly." "Did his wife know about this?" "I don't think so. Gregory was very discreet. Although, She hesitated. "What?" "About a month ago, Mrs. Clark came into the office unexpectedly. Gregory was with one of his, girlfriends, in his office. I managed to stall Mrs. Clark by telling her he was on a conference call, but she obviously suspected something." Sorensen wrote that information down. Veronica said nothing about her suspicions of her husband's infidelity. His next step was to visit Pasadena Medical Center. A preliminary inquiry revealed that Veronica Clark had visited the clinic several times during the past month. Dr. Sarah Rivera, the doctor who treated Veronica, appeared to be a middle-aged woman with a discerning eye and reserved manners. She met Sorensen in her office, warning in advance that she could not disclose confidential information about the patient. "Dr. Rivera, I understand your obligation to maintain doctor-patient confidentiality," Sorensen began. "But this is a murder investigation. Mrs. Clark's husband was found dead, and we have reason to believe that his death may be connected to information about his wife's health." Rivera looked at the detective carefully. "Do you have a warrant to access her medical records?" "Not yet. I was hoping for your cooperation. If the information proves important to the investigation, I'll get all the necessary documents." Dr. Rivera hesitated, tapping her fingers on the table. "I can't disclose a diagnosis or details of treatment without proper authorization, but I can tell you that Mrs. Clark's condition is serious and requires long-term treatment. It's a chronic condition." "Could this condition be the result of her husband's actions?" Rivera raised her eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "We have information that Mr. Clark has been leading an active extramarital life. I thought it might be a disease that was transmitted in a certain way." The doctor took a long look at Sorensen, weighing her professional obligations against her civic duty. "I can't confirm or deny your suspicions, Detective, but I will say this. If your suspicions are correct, Mrs. Clark learned of her diagnosis about 3 weeks ago, and that news was, devastating. Devastating enough to provoke revenge?" "It's not for me to judge," Rivera replied firmly. "If you want more specific information, get a warrant." Sorensen thanked the doctor and left the clinic with even more suspicions. On his way back to the station, he called Nunez. "What did you find out about the Clarks' finances?" "A lot of interesting things," Nunez said. "First, they have a joint life insurance policy worth $2 million. Second, most of the assets are registered on Gregory, but in case of his death, everything goes to his wife. Third, there are strange transfers from Gregory's personal account to someone named Vanessa Morales, $5,000 a month for the last 3 years. Did you find out who she is?" "Already working on it. Looks like she works for one of Clark's subsidiaries. Could be one of his mistresses." The secretary confirmed that Gregory had several extramarital affairs. Back at the station, Sorensen delved deeper into the material he'd collected. The picture gradually became clearer. Gregory Clark, an outwardly successful and respected businessman, led a double life. His infidelities had probably led to his wife contracting a serious disease. If it was HIV, as Sorensen suspected, the motive for murder became obvious. Toward evening, Nunez knocked on Sorensen's office. "I found Vanessa Morales," he reported. "She's agreed to talk to us. And one more thing. I got some information on the Gibbs House security system. It's a pretty old model that only records activation and deactivation, but it doesn't record which door or window was opened. So there's a chance Veronica could have left the house without setting off the main alarm system?" "Theoretically, yes, especially if we're talking about a window on the second floor. The system's mostly set up for front doors and first-floor windows." "That's interesting. Let's talk to Vanessa Morales first. Maybe she can shed some light on our victim's personal life." Vanessa Morales was a gorgeous Hispanic woman in her 30s. They met at a coffee shop near her office. She was nervous, constantly looking around as if she was afraid of being seen. "Miss Morales, thank you for agreeing to meet," Sorensen began. "We're investigating the murder of Gregory Clark, and we discovered that you were receiving regular wire transfers from him." "I know about his death," she replied quietly. "That's terrible. What was your relationship with Mr. Clark?" Vanessa was silent for a moment, then looked determinedly at the detectives. "We had a relationship. 3 years ago we met at a company party. He was charming. I didn't realize he was married until it was too late." "Too late?" "I got pregnant. When I told him, he admitted he was married and convinced me to have an abortion. Then he started paying me monthly maintenance to keep me quiet. I'm not proud of it, but I needed the money and he had plenty of it." "Did you stay in a relationship after that?" "Sometimes. He'd call when he wanted to meet. I agreed because..." She shrugged. "I guess I was still in love no matter what." "When was the last time you saw him?" 2 weeks ago. He was strangely nervous, not his usual self. Said he was in trouble, but wouldn't say what kind of trouble." "Did he say anything about his wife? That she might have suspected something?" "No. Gregory rarely mentioned her, but he did say something odd that night." "What was it?" "He said, 'You should get tested, as soon as possible.' I didn't understand what he meant, so I asked him if his health was okay. He brushed it off, said it was just a precaution, but I could see he was scared." Sorensen and Nunez looked at each other. This information confirmed their suspicions. "Miss Morales, did you take the tests after he said that?" "Yeah. I went to the clinic the next day, got a standard STD panel. It was clean, thank God." "Do you know of any other women Gregory was seeing?" Vanessa grinned bitterly. "I know I wasn't the only one. I once saw him in a restaurant with another woman, a blonde woman, very beautiful. They didn't notice me, and his driver once let it slip that he takes the boss to different ladies." After talking to Vanessa, the detectives headed to the Gibbs house in Altadena. Sorensen wanted to personally inspect the security system and the room where Veronica had slept the night of the murder. Warren Gibbs greeted them warily but let them into the house. Patricia was more hospitable, offered coffee and cookies. "Mr. Gibbs, I'd like to take a look at your security system if you don't mind," Sorensen said. "Follow me." Gibbs led them to the control panel in the hallway. "This is the main unit. It's a pretty simple system. Sensors on all the doors and windows on the first floor, plus motion sensors in the main rooms." "And the second floor?" "There's only sensors on the guest bedroom windows and my office. There are no sensors on the windows of Veronica's old room. They never worked properly, and I disconnected them years ago." Sorensen and Nunez exchanged glances again. This was important information. "Could we take a look at this room? Look at..." Gibbs led them to the second floor and opened the door to a corner room. A large window overlooked the backyard where an old tree grew, its branches almost touching the wall of the house. When she was a kid, Veronica used to use that tree to climb out the window when she came back later than allowed, Gibbs said with a slight smile. "We pretended not to know, but of course we guessed." "And now you can get out through that window without setting off the alarm?" Sorensen asked. Gibbs frowned, suddenly realizing where this conversation was going. "Theoretically, yes, but you don't think Veronica would? That's absurd. She's been here in this house all night." "Are you sure? Did you see her after you went to bed?" "No, but, His voice became uncertain. "She was here at breakfast this morning. She looked like her usual self." "Mrs. Gibbs is taking sleeping pills," she told us. "Do you?" "Sometimes. That night, yeah, I had a rough day." Sorensen went to the window and opened it. Indeed, climbing out into the tree and from there down into the yard would not be difficult for a physically fit man. "Is the room still as it was when Veronica lived here?" "Pretty much. We use it as a guest room, but a lot of Veronica's things are still here." Sorensen looked around the room. There were cups and medals on a shelf, obviously sports awards. "Your daughter played sports?" "Yes, she was captain of the school track team. She was a very good middle-distance runner. So physically, she's in good shape? Even now, she works out regularly, runs in the mornings, goes to the gym." Sorensen mentally noted another fact that confirmed his theory. Veronica could well have climbed down through the window, driven to her husband's house, killed him, and returned before dawn. especially since her parents were sound asleep under the influence of sleeping pills. Back at the station, Sorensen gathered all the available data. Motive, opportunity, physical ability, everything pointed to Veronica. But more evidence was needed to make an arrest. "What do we do next?" Nunez asked. "We get a warrant for Veronica's medical records. If she really is HIV positive, it'll strengthen our theory of motive. And check traffic cam footage of the route between the Gibbs house and the Clark house the night of the murder. What if she didn't use the main roads? Then we need to find something else. Something tangible that connects her to the crime scene that night." Sorensen thought for a moment. "We need to take another hard look at the area around the Clark house and the route between the two houses. A killer always leaves traces, even if he thinks he's been perfectly careful. And we're still missing the murder weapon," Nunez added. "Right. The knife used to kill Gregory was not found in the house or nearby. If Veronica really did it, she must have gotten rid of it somehow on her way back to her parents." They decided to organize a search along possible routes between the two houses in the morning. If Veronica had discarded the bloody knife and clothes, there was a chance they were still there, waiting to be found, and uncover the truth about this seemingly perfect murder. The rainy morning of the third day of the investigation brought Sorensen an unexpected breakthrough. He had just entered his office when the phone rang. On the line was the county highway dispatcher. "Detective Sorensen? We got something interesting. Guys found a suspicious package in the bushes on Sierra Madre Villa Avenue, about 2 miles from Altadena. Inside are bloody clothes and a knife." Sorensen's heart raced. Sierra Madre Villa Avenue is one of the roads linking Pasadena and Altadena, just on the route between the Clark house and the home of Veronica's parents. "No one touches the find. We're leaving immediately." 20 minutes later, Sorensen and Nunez were at the site. The road workers showed them exactly where they found the package, in the dense bushes about 15 meters from the curb, in a place where the road makes a gentle curve, and traffic is usually not too heavy. "We were clearing the curb, and one of the guys noticed a strange package," the foreman explained. "At first we thought it was just trash, but when we opened it up..." Sorensen pulled on his gloves and carefully opened the black plastic bag. Inside were 3 items: a cheap hooded sweatshirt, surgical gloves, and a long-bladed kitchen knife. All of the items were stained with blood, already dried and blackened. "Looks like second-hand clothes," Nunez commented, looking at the hoodie. "No identifying marks or labels." "Smart." Sorensen nodded. "Bought something faceless that can't be traced, and the size is just right for a woman." He examined the knife closely, a long, narrow blade, the kind that could have left the wounds found on Gregory's body. "Call forensics and cordon off the area. We need to thoroughly search the entire area. There may be other evidence." While they waited for forensics to arrive, Sorensen surveyed the area. The location was perfect, a deserted stretch of road where he could stop for a few minutes at night to dump compromising evidence. A little farther down the road, he spotted a traffic surveillance camera. "Nunez, you see that camera? We need to request footage from the night of the murder. Maybe we got lucky, and it caught Veronica's car." Forensics arrived and got to work. They've collected the evidence, bagged it properly, and sent it to the lab for urgent analysis. Test the blood against the victim's DNA and look for any other traces that might link these items to Veronica Clark, Sorensen instructed them. After lunch, Sorensen obtained a court order for Veronica's medical records. Dr. Rivera was reluctant, but provided the requested information, the diagnosis was confirmed. Veronica was HIV positive. The chart also indicated that the initial testing was done after she felt sick and went to the doctor with general symptoms. Subsequent tests confirmed the diagnosis. In one of the notes, Dr. Rivera noted the patient's psychological state. Patient shows signs of acute stress and depression after receiving diagnosis. Counseling with a psychologist was recommended. The patient declined, stating that she wanted to talk to her husband first. Veronica's last visit was 3 days before the murder. Dr. Rivera recorded, "Patient seems strangely calm, almost detached. Says she has discussed the situation with her husband and now knows what to do, concerned about her emotional state." Sorensen gave these notes to Nunez. "There's the motive. She found out about the diagnosis, realized she had contracted the disease from her husband because of his cheating, and decided to get revenge. But there's still no direct evidence linking her to the murder. Nunez noted. We'll have to wait for the results of the analysis of the items found. Sorensen nodded. We had to wait a little longer to put together the final picture of the crime. That evening, the first results came back. DNA analysis of the blood on the knife showed a 100% match to Gregory Clark's DNA. Microscopic fibers were found on the sweatshirt, identical to the upholstery material of the seats in Veronica's car. They also found traces of sweat on the inside of the surgical gloves, which could also contain the killer's DNA. Additionally, forensics found a barely visible fingerprint on the bag. A preliminary comparison indicated that it belonged to Veronica, although more time was needed for final confirmation. At the same time, the traffic camera footage came in. They did indeed show a car that looked like Veronica's Lexus driving toward Pasadena around 2 a.m. and returning toward Altadena about an hour later. Because of the darkness and rain, the recording quality was poor, but experts confirmed that the model and color matched her car. Sorensen called a quick meeting. Here's what we've got. Motive. Veronica found out her husband had infected her with HIV. Opportunity. She could have secretly left her parents' house through the window of her old room without setting off the alarm. Evidence. A bag of bloody clothes and a knife discarded on the route between the two houses. Camera footage showing a car similar to hers around the time of the murder. I think that's enough for an arrest warrant. Early the next morning, Sorensen and Nunez, along with 2 patrol officers, arrived at the Gibbs house. Warren opened the door, looking alarmed. Detective? What's going on? Mr. Gibbs, we have a warrant for your daughter's arrest on suspicion of Gregory Clark's murder. Warren's face contorted in shock. There's been some kind of mistake. Veronica couldn't... Dad, what's wrong? Veronica appeared in the hallway, dressed in a housecoat. Veronica Clark, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Gregory Clark, Sorensen said formally. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. Sorensen continued to read Miranda, but was startled by Veronica's reaction. Instead of protesting or being hysterical, there was a strange expression on her face of relief. She listened silently, then simply nodded. Can I get dressed before we go? The female officer escorted Veronica to her room so she could change. Patricia Gibbs came down the stairs when she heard a commotion. What's going on? She saw the cops and turned pale. Warren? They're arresting Veronica. Her husband answered hoarsely. They say she killed Gregory. That's ridiculous, Patricia exclaimed. She's been here all night, we told you. Mrs. Gibbs, we have proof that your daughter left the house that night, Sorensen said softly. Through the window of her old room, where there are no alarm sensors. Patricia staggered and grabbed the stair railing. No, it's impossible. Veronica came down a few minutes later, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater. She looked calm, almost detached. I'm ready, she said. Veronica, don't say anything without a lawyer, Warren shouted. She looked at her parents with a sad smile. It's okay, Daddy. I know what I'm doing. At the police station, Sorensen prepared an interview room. Veronica refused to call his lawyer despite repeated offers. I won't deny what I did, she said when they were alone in the interrogation room. I killed my husband. Even expecting this, Sorensen was surprised by such a direct confession. Tell me how it all happened, Mrs. Clark. Veronica folded her hands on the table. Her voice was steady, almost mechanical. 3 weeks ago, I was diagnosed as HIV positive. It was like the end of the world. I'd never cheated on Gregory. We'd been married 15 years. The only way I could have gotten infected was through him. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I didn't tell him right away. First, I tried to figure out how it could have happened. I started following him and quickly discovered that he was seeing other women. Several. When did you tell him about the diagnosis? A week before, what happened? I thought he'd be shocked, scared, but Her voice finally wavered. He was completely calm, said he'd known about his status for over 3 years, knew and continued to sleep with me without protection, continued to date other women. He said he preferred not to think about it. Sorensen felt a wave of disgust for the victim. What did you do after that conversation? The first few days I was in shock. Then I started planning. I decided he had no right to live after what he had done, not only with me, but with other women he might have infected. Veronica continued talking, describing how she had thought it all through, how she bought cheap clothes secondhand, chose a night when her husband would be working late, pretended to go to her parents' house. I did go to their place. We had dinner, watched a movie. I knew my mom was taking sleeping pills, and my dad also takes pills sometimes. I waited until they were asleep, then I quietly went out the window like I used to do when I was young. Did you drive straight home? No. First, I stopped at a convenience store, where I changed into a pre-purchased sweatshirt. In the car, I had a bag of gloves, booties, and a knife I'd bought with cash in another city. She told me how she'd gotten home, how she'd quietly gone up to the bedroom where Gregory was sound asleep. She'd slipped sleeping pills into his wine at dinner beforehand. It was strangely easy. Her voice had gone completely quiet. 4 strokes. He didn't even wake up. Then I packed everything back into the bag, made sure I didn't leave a trace anywhere, and left. You dumped the bag on the way back to your parents' house? Yeah, at Sierra Madre Villa. It was dark, no traffic. I just stopped for a second and threw the bag as far into the bushes as I could. Then I went back to my parents' house, climbed back in through the window, and went to bed. And in the morning? In the morning, I had breakfast with my parents as if nothing had happened, then drove home to discover the body. I knew the police would suspect me first, but I hoped my alibi would work. Sorensen watched her carefully. She spoke calmly, without emotion, as if she were talking about a trip to the store, not a murder. Why did you decide to confess now? Veronica shrugged her shoulders slightly. What's the point of denying it? You found the bag, you found the knife, you have the camera footage. I'm not going to waste my energy denying the obvious. She looked Sorensen straight in the eye. I don't regret what I did. If I had to choose again, I'd do the same thing. He deserved what he got. He knowingly infected me with a deadly disease and probably other women too. In my eyes, that's tantamount to murder. The interrogation continued for another hour. Veronica signed a confession, detailing all the details of her crime. As she was led away to her cell, she looked almost peaceful, as if the weight that had been weighing on her for the past weeks had finally been lifted from her shoulders. Warren and Patricia Gibbs waited in the reception area of the police station. When Sorensen came out to see them, they both looked 10 years older. She confessed, didn't she? Warren asked quietly. Yes, replied Sorensen. She told me in detail how it all happened. Can we see her? Soon, when the formalities are completed, but you should know, she has no remorse for what she did. Patricia burst into tears, leaning into her husband's shoulder. Warren put his arm around her, trying to comfort her, though he could hardly hold back his own tears. We should have noticed, should have realized something was wrong, he murmured. She was never violent. Mr. Gibbs, sometimes circumstances push people to do things no one expects them to do, Sorensen said softly. And for what it's worth, she said you didn't know about anything, that you honestly believe she was home all night. The parents nodded, too stunned to say anything else. Sorensen left them with the officer who was to explain further procedures. Back in his office, Sorensen began filling out reports. The case was effectively solved, but he felt a strange emptiness instead of the usual satisfaction of a completed investigation. This story had no positive heroes or happy ending. Gregory Clark, an outwardly successful and respectable man, had led a double life for years, deliberately jeopardizing the health and lives of his wife and mistresses. Veronica, learning of the betrayal, chose vigilante justice over legal paths, however difficult they might be. And their parents unwittingly provided an alibi for the crime. That evening, sitting in his car in front of the house where his own family was waiting for him, Sorensen thought about how fragile human relationships can be, how easily lies and betrayal destroy what has taken years to build, and how sometimes even the most ordinary, law-abiding people can cross the line when something fundamentally important to them is jeopardized. He remembered Veronica's words, "I have no regrets." He deserved what he got. Was she right? Did Gregory deserve his fate? Sorensen knew the law gave an unequivocal answer to that question, but as a human being, he wasn't sure. Looking out the burning windows of his house, he thought about how important it is to appreciate those we love and be honest with them, and how quickly life can turn into tragedy when we forget that simple truth. With a heavy heart, but feeling that justice had finally been served, though not exactly as the law dictated, Sorensen got out of the car and headed toward his home, toward the people who were waiting for him to return.